When you're really busy and you're in that firefighting mode, when you're in that too long, you move into chronic stress. So then you really have to know the difference if you're busy or if you are in survivorship mode. So I'm going to go through the 5 biggest behaviors that I'm seeing in organizations in which they've crossed that line from busy to survivorship mode to burnout, that they're actually feeding a toxic culture of chronic stress. So the first behavior that I'm seeing in organizations that are moving into that chronic stress state is reactivity over reflection. And what I mean by that is every day they're in response mode. They're not really intentionally controlling what's going on in their organization, the functions, the responses to customers, initiatives, and then they get to the end of the quarter and they're like, why didn't we hit our goals? Why is this initiative not done? Oh, we haven't had time. Everything is in reaction to the fires going around. Now, I come from a 24/7 3-plant operation and then also supported some of the U.S. plants with leadership development. And so at any point in time, I was also in response mode. So you walk in and your day is dictated by your emails. Your day is dictated by all of the calendar invites that have come in. You actually control nothing. Your whole day is in response mode. Day after day after day, do you think that I'm really moving things forward? No, I'm doing a lot of things, but then there's more on my to-do list, and there's more on my to-do list, and there's more on my to-do list, and there's never that proof of progress, which is feeding burnout. So you're not really thinking strategically, you're just placing people into roles. You're not really thinking long-term because you're always fighting the daily fires. So what you actually want to work on and your priorities that you would want to work on in the day, take a back seat to the crisis of the day. The second thing that I'm seeing is overcommitment. Organizations and leaders and teams are saying yes to everything. Change is happening at an extremely fast pace. There's people changes in the modern day workforce. There's product changes with all the new developments and process changes with all the technology and advancements in software right now. So it's stealing our attention. And the key thing I'm seeing in leaders is it's easier to do product and process type of changes over people because people are complex. People take time. And the lack of training that leaders are getting right now, they don't have the right resources and tools to address the situation. So they're overcommitting on product and process changes and they're leaving people behind. When really, people are the biggest asset. People are the most expensive on the P&L sheet with payroll and benefits. But yet they're taking the back seat when it comes to leadership time. So overcommitment in too many areas, saying yes to too many things, means that you're saying no to a lot of the important needle movers in your organization. 3, constant urgency. Everything is an emergency, even though it doesn't really matter today, or it might not even matter this quarter. We can't figure out what is high priority and what is not. And when I work on this workforce energy management model with leaders, you will see the difference in opinions and perspectives come out, and they can't align on what is urgent and important together because they all come from different perspectives. So when an organization is disconnected like that between leaders, that trickles down because this team thinks that's priority and this team thinks that's priority, and we're all on different trails. So we're not going to hit the end destination together. So when everything is an urgent matter, everything's an emergency, and we're not really prioritizing our days and we're always in that response mode, we're causing more fires than what it's worth. The fourth thing I want to talk about is neglecting breaks. I was the number 1 offender of skipping lunch. I would eat during meetings. I would snack all day during meetings and never actually take a break. So when you start removing breaks, when you start overpacking days with meetings, a lot of meetings don't matter. When you start overpacking your days, that is a sign that you're going to start moving into that chronic stress state because you're always on at high energy all day long. And then you go home and you're like people are excited to go home because they're not at work. They're not excited to go home to do home things, to do family things, to hang out with friends, to live a life. They just don't want to be at work. That's not a great state to be in. And when the behaviors start changing like that, that's already phase 8 of 12 of burnout. That behaviors are changing, that you're not excited to come into work. You're not excited to go at home. Those behavior changes are happening and people are observing them. That's already phase 8 of 12 in burnout. The last couple steps are not pretty. Trust me from a burnout survivor. It ain't. It ain't a good state to be in. So neglecting breaks, feeding that chronic stress. Now, 5 is that fragmented focus. So just like I talked about where everything's emergency, every department has their own priority, they're in their separate silos. Fragmented focus is causing this ping and ponging that we never go into deep work, that we never actually take back control of what we want to work on, the priorities for the day, the initiatives that we want to move forward, and we get further behind because we don't have this laser focus that we're doing right now. It's okay to put things in parking lot. It's okay to put things on the side when they're not urgent and important, but we want to do everything. We feel that sense of accomplishment off our to-do list, but really we didn't do anything. It's noise. It's another activity. It's not a value add. And this is a huge mindset shift that we have to go through when we get into the workflow section of workforce energy management, is that there are things in your workflow that are noise, that are distractions, that are just activities, and they need to go. We can automate. We can connect systems. We don't even do that anymore. Why are we still doing it manually? So multitasking shouldn't be the norm. Working through meetings shouldn't be a norm. Don't have the meeting then because people are not focused. A great example from one of my clients is they don't allow any laptops in the meeting except for the record keeper who's putting it right in the system for everyone to see, because people are on their phones and emails, people are on their laptops still working. Why are we having this meeting if people are only attentive 10%? Don't have the meeting. So when you have this fragmented focus because everyone's on their own little trail, you start to get miscommunication. You start to have distrust because someone said they would do something, they didn't do it because that's not priority. You have more mistakes, and then it's easier to disengage. It's easier to leave because you get in that helpless, hopeless state of why try? So when you have that fragmented focus, people are just kind of scattered around the woods and it's just a mess. So here's some things you can start to move away from those 5 behaviors of survivorship mode, of feeding the chronic stress in your organization. Redefining what is urgent. There is a lot of false alarms. There's a lot of gossip. There's a lot of drama. What is a fire and what is not? What is everyone's all in and what is just the action owner is in, right? We don't need 6 people for a 1-person job, but we love to firefight. We love to play the hero. So how are we going to redefine what's urgent? How are we going to redefine who responds so we don't have 7 people on a 1-person job? How are we going to align leadership so that the messaging is clear on what is urgent, what is not? Removing those silos. Building in recovery time is the second one. So when we go from meeting to meeting, when we have a big initiative and then we have to go to another meeting, you're losing momentum, you're losing productivity because there's no break to let that absorb. There's no break to take some notes on what that means for your team, some action items, some owners you can start assigning to it. That mental reset space to figure out what's going on and what you want to do next, the next steps. We just go. We're losing productivity and opportunities to adapt, to create, to innovate, because we're just stuck in the do. So when you can structure in pauses, which people do right now just for meeting spillover, which I think is just ridiculous. If you are scheduling a half hour in your calendar, an hour for meeting spillover, waste. That's 100% waste. Scheduling an hour after a meeting because you're going to dissect what happened in that meeting, what that means to your team, action owners, to-dos that came out of that, things that you need to look into, right? You're making that space, that intentional deep work time to move whatever came out of that meeting forward. Value add actions. And then empower strategic thinking, empower those creative deep work moments. When you have your one-on-one meeting or your department meetings, that's a great question to ask. Are we stuck in activities or are we moving into more focused work? Have you had your focused work this day? If not, what's a good question to ask? What's getting in the way? That's your noise. That's your dysfunction in pass-offs. That's your dysfunction in systems. Start addressing that. Do you see where opportunities of workflow are coming out? Opportunities for productivity optimization. But you need intentional space to get there. You need to stay in that curiosity, open-ended questions to start examining the dysfunction. And suddenly time starts to appear because you're addressing the root causes of dysfunction versus all the symptoms and noise going on. So how can you empower this deep work, this focus in your organization, in your departments, in your team? The next thing you can think about is how the direction and clarity across departments is. Because I've sat in enough leadership meetings to know we all agree in this specific room, and then we leave and that person says that, 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 and we're all over the woods. Even though 5 minutes prior we just committed to what we were going to do. Personal preferences get in there, department priorities get in the way. They let fear and gossip and drama drive the day. So really getting into decision clarity and how we're going to move forward. That it's unacceptable to feed this drama energy. That when we make a decision, we make it together. We all agreed on action owners. We agreed on the follow-up measures, the timelines, and now we execute. I see probably the most dysfunction in the higher level leaderships levels because they don't trust each other. They don't communicate well. They're very misaligned and on their own directions. So this meeting that you're having, all this talking that you're doing about alignment, again, is waste. It's noise because execution matters. Actions matter. So fostering that decision, the clarity of what we're going to do next, and that follow up, the action owners, and holding them accountable is going to help clean up some of that noise. Now, the last one I want you to be aware is the energy. And when you're aware of the energy in your culture, you can adapt when you need to. I've seen a lot of teams that are on the edge, and then corporate comes down with new initiatives and 40% turnover, like within a couple months. I see plant sites struggling, and they hire me to help them with burnout prevention and employee engagement, this workforce energy management. And we're working on it, and we're getting momentum at the site level, and then corporate comes in and crushes them with all these initiatives that don't matter in their operations. Like, they're trying to reduce turnover. They're trying to get the machines running right now. And then they're like talking about other things that just don't matter at the trench level. And I'm a in the trenches leader. And so you see this going on, and there's a complete disconnect from the parent top and the bottom, and the energy just. So are you aware of the energy in your culture? Yes, you want to get to an energized state. Yes, you want to have teams that innovate and create with that energy vibe going on, but you have to get there. And so are you honoring that transition? Are you honoring that transformation, or are you bogging people down so they can never get there? You're putting this fog on their journey in which that destination is no longer clear, all right, because you're sending mixed messages. So people perform best when they're not constantly depleted. So I always suggest, as we go into this workforce energy management programs, is what can you put aside so we can focus on this? So we can focus on this journey together, because there's going to be some work. There's going to be some cleanup in your systems. There's going to be a lot of conversations and initiatives around pass-offs. We're going to get leadership aligned on priorities and where are we going? How are you messaging that? I'm not going to come in and add that to your to-do list. I'm not going to add more. We're going to shift something out. Create intentional space, making sure that we're honoring the energy in your culture right now and where it needs to go. And the companies who have done that, it's become priority. It's become priority that we have one-on-ones. It's become priority that we make space in our department meetings for these curiosity, open-ended questions. And then naturally, people follow that energy because they see their operations start to come to life. They see the problems actually getting fixed at the root cause. And it's a really cool transformation to see them basically take it on their own. And that's the goal, is I'll provide the tools, I'll provide the framework, I'll give some third-party perspective of things that I'm seeing. And as you start to take hold of that energy and people start to follow it, I back up, all right? Because I've fed the energy and I've guided a nice trail map, and now go run with it and let that energy thrive. And that's the place you want to be. Because energy management isn't about doing less. It's about doing the value-added tasks in a very sustainable way. Because fighting this reality of change and the massive to-do list that's always coming our way, fighting this chaos, resisting change, it's only wasting energy. Resilient organizations, they manage the energy wisely. They start to address these behaviors feeding the chronic stress, moving teams from exhaustion back to excellence.